Good evening and welcome. I'm Roy Blitzer, and our show is Ask Dr. Business. The purpose of our time together is to give information and insight to help make your life at work more exciting. The desired outcome is you'll take this counsel and have a more productive and happier time at work. We're continuing our series on part-time workers, and very fortunate this evening to have as our guest Laura Wilson. Laura is a part-time home care healthcare giver, correct?
Home health caregiver.
Home health caregiver. We should do that as an elocution exercise. But she is here to talk about her life in the world of part-time, and you have an opportunity to call to ask her questions. The number here is 650-856-1491. Welcome again.
Thank you
for helping me with my H's. Tell me a little bit about your pre-life as a healthcare worker, and a little bit about your education and training.
Thank you, Roy. I grew up in Topeka, Kansas, and came to California to go to Stanford. I graduated with history degree, and my first job was working as a nanny for a family in Quebec. They had 5 children, and I wanted to see what being a mother would be like.
That's certainly eye-opening.
Right, a real dip-in experience. Then,
that I assume was a full-time job.
I lived with the family. Yes, I was. Then I went to graduate school at Northwestern University, where I got a master's degree in journalism. It turned out to be a wonderful career choice at that time because there are so many different ways you can use journalism as a teacher, a writer, an editor. You can use it in TV, in newspaper work, magazine work, almost any of the fields. So, good field. Always open to full-time and many, many part-time.
But not you yet.
Not me yet. So my first job was at Stanford University in the development department where I wrote fundraising brochures.
And then?
And then I worked for the American West magazine, which was located in Cupertino. And then worked for the San Francisco Human Rights Commission.
And then I guess your full-time career was over then.
Well, at that point I married Ted, my husband, and we raised 3 children. We moved from San Francisco to Kansas City, where we spent the next 37 years raising our 3 children. And during those years, I wanted very much to have enough time at home with them to be the mommy that I aspired to be, and so I worked.
So for all those years you worked part-time?
Yes, 37.
Well, give us a little bit of a hint about what you did on those part-time jobs, and I'll solicit some questions from our viewers.
Okay.
One more time, I'm Roy Blitzer, and we're here at Ask Dr. Business. Our series on part-time workers is continuing, and Laura Wilson is our guest. Please don't hesitate to call with any questions. The phone number is 650-856-1491, and she's now going to tell us all the part-time jobs she's had, and then we'll go to the home health care work she's doing now.
Right. So I worked
You're going to be inspiration for my listeners and viewers, I'm sure.
I wrote articles for a nursing magazine, and I did some freelance writing. One magazine I wrote for was Mother's Manual.
So you were capturing your experience.
I was. Yeah, the lived experience is always best to write about.
And how many hours a week did you think you worked then?
Oh, maybe 10.
Okay.
Not
real part-time.
Yeah, part-time, yes. Then, let's see. I wanted to know about my children's school, and I thought, I think I'll try being a substitute teacher. Well, to do that, I had to get a teaching credential.
And you did?
I did do that, and wound up, the short answer is teaching journalism at Rockhurst College, which is a local college in Kansas City.
Again, part-time?
Yes.
How many hours there?
Oh, gosh. Well, it depends if you count in the preparation, but teaching time was 3 classes a week, so not,
Classic adjunct schedule, I think.
Yes, right. And you're familiar with that.
I am very familiar because of my experience both at Menlo College and at San Jose State. Well, this we didn't prep for, but what did you learn from these first few part-time jobs?
Well, I learned that I really loved part-time work because I didn't want to get involved in office politics.
Oh, very good.
I find that people who sit together in an office all day long tend to do some talking, gossiping. Sometimes it can
And
be
as a
cruel.
part-timer, they don't want to include you in that, I'm
Well,
sure.
you just aren't there for it, and so I enjoyed that. I like to be able to come home at the middle of the afternoon and start dinner and hear the news and
You were a happy camper.
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
then what?
So
I
after,
guess the audience is not going to believe how many part-time jobs you've had. You're a perfect guest.
Well, one of the jobs was doing desktop publishing at home for a religious newspaper, and that I didn't like that as much. It was kind of lonely just being by myself at home, and receiving articles and pictures that were submitted by mail.
And laying it out and artistically.
Yeah, did the layout, everything. So, I think it's fun to go out to a part-time job that's in a where.
So are you still in the 10 to 12 hours a week work?
No, I have about 15 hours
Ah,
now.
we're moving up. Okay, then what?
Let's see. I then changed careers and decided I heard the call of God to ministry. And
As long as you hear the call of God and don't touch your mic, we're in good shape.
Okay, right, okay.
So you went to become a minister.
So I did, yes. I got 2 degrees in theology. And
Laura, we should have had you as our guest under career options rather than part-time work.
how about career hopper?
Well, on the contrary, it sounds like you were successful at all of them.
Well,
Getting part-time jobs is not easy.
Well, as far as the jump from journalism to ministry, I always used to say I went from reporting the stories to proclaiming the good news.
Good line. Okay, so then how long did it take you to get your degree?
I did my degrees, my 2 theology degrees, did them part-time too.
We
Because
should give you a new middle name.
I was still raising those children, and it took me 10 years to get those 2 degrees.
Well, you're not only ambitious and smart, but determined. I'm very amazed.
Thank you.
Okay, let me solicit a question.
Okay.
We're not done with the careers yet, are we? No. Okay. The phone number here is 650-856-1491. If you've just tuned in, I'm Roy Blitzer, and our show is Ask Dr. Business. We're continuing our series on part-time workers, and Laura Wilson is my esteemed guest for the evening. Right now, she is a part-time healthcare worker with home care, and she's now giving us a little history of how she got there.
Yeah. So
You're a minister.
I was a minister. I was first a pastor for 3 years, and then I went into hospice work.
But all part-time.
Yes.
I know this is going to sound silly, but did it include Sundays?
It did.
Okay.
Yeah.
But what would be I can't imagine being, what if you needed someone, it wasn't the day you worked?
Well, you take the call. If someone,
Okay.
one of your parishioners calls, you're
You
there.
don't work
You have to be
part-time.
there for them full time.
I have a feeling that of all the jobs that would be most, I don't want to use the word take advantage, but I have a feeling that if your compensation was in, 20 hours a week, you must have worked significantly more hours than that. Because you cannot do part-time ministering, I don't think, and still help your congregation.
Actually, a lot of churches can't afford a full-time pastor.
So it's a necessity.
So yes, many people have had to go from full-time to part-time ministry.
Now, was part of this job giving sermons too?
Oh yes, every Sunday.
Well, that alone must be more than 20 hours of.
It was. It was.
Well, that's a real calling. I'm
Well,
very
well,
impressed.
it was because you spend hours that you don't mind giving up for a cause that you believe in.
So, what did you learn from that particular experience? Was that your longest part-time job, the ministering?
Mm, I'm not sure. I'd have to.
Add them up again.
Yeah, right. Get my resume out and count the years. But so, Dear Ted came with me when I would drive to these little churches in the country. They were outside the bounds of Kansas City.
You must have learned geography, if nothing else.
I learned what country life is like, and that was new for me because I'd grown up in a relatively medium-sized city.
Well,
and
some
then,
people think Stanford's still a farm, but I'm not sure.
good point.
Okay, so you
then,
learned about yourself or about the people?
In the well, ministry can be uncomfortable if you're a woman, because many people in the rural Missouri are not used to women in positions of responsibility, leadership. Yes, it is still very much a red state. So I found that I chafed a little at that because I thought I was perfectly adequate to the
Well, you seem like
position.
you were very capable.
And so then I started to look around. What else could I be doing?
Did
with
they
this
know? Did
education?
they know you were part-time?
Oh, that's what
No,
they hire
no,
you.
no. The parishioners.
They hired me. They're the ones who
Ah, got it.
set the terms of the job.
So everyone in the congregation knew that you weren't a full-time.
Oh, yes, that's
Okay.
those are the terms when you sign your contract.
Okay,
And
so,
also when you collect your pay, you're very much aware that it's part-time.
we're not even going to go there. So far between adjunct teaching, part-time substitute teaching, and ministering, you're not in the top 1%,
No.
I'm sure.
Absolutely true.
Well, I'm going to now solicit another question or two. I feel like the home network, selling mugs. 650-856-1491 is our phone number here. I'm talking with Laura Wilson and having a delightful time learning about the myriad of part-time jobs that she has. Please call in. Her expertise would be wonderful to help you if you're thinking of working part-time. So we're leaving the ministry and going.
And seeking another job in the ministry, which was hospice chaplain.
A hospice.
And I did
That's
do
how
that.
you got close to be very qualified for this work you're doing now.
It was very much a natural bridge. When you do hospice work, you are plopped in the middle of a home and a family, and it could be 2 or 3 generations of family who are all gathered there, just
Waiting.
emotional and needing wisdom, needing compassion.
Well, I think in one of the questions we talked about what qualities you need to be empathetic and caring and a good listener.
Right.
But what happens if they want you to come and it's not the day you work?
Oh,
Do you
well,
have to go in?
on the hospice chaplain?
Yeah. I guess I'm very amazed that you seem to be so wonderfully giving that if it must be very hard to set boundaries. Let me ask it that way.
Because it's part-time work, you don't mind going at times that you're not expected to be there. If someone is on,
Okay, well,
say, on their
so the
deathbed,
skills
you
of
want to be
being
there.
a hospice minister are different than the others.
Yes, I would say you're in a sense. I felt that was out of my mothering. The call to be a chaplain is like a call to be a mother and care for her little net.
Well, I used to say, because of my experience in management training, that being a manager has a lot of the same qualities about being a parent.
Yes.
I think those skills are what we would call all-encompassing. It's different because there's not as much emotional attachment with your administrative assistant as you'd have with your child, but the skills about trying to listen and be supportive, etc., are the same as that. Okay, so how long did you do the
chaplaincy was 7 years.
Wow, that may be the track record.
I really am grateful that I had that experience. I recently heard Tim McGraw's song, Live Like You Were Dying. It goes back, but that is what you learn in hospice work, is to live like you are dying, because very often, you know, you like this bridge that just collapsed in Miami,
Right.
The pedestrian bridge, and killed some people. You never know when your life is over.
You never do know.
And you want to live each day as though
That's a
it may
great
be
piece
your
of
last one.
advice.
Yes.
And if you're part-time, you cannot not live, because you don't know whether there's going to be anything afterwards.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's come to California.
Okay, so in 2015.
By the way, I've counted 5 things. That's the most part-time
Okay.
I've ever heard.
Okay. We moved here to be present and as grandparents for our 4th grandchild.
Perfect.
Little Delphine lives in Newark. We live in Union City, and we can. I see her, care for her, an hour or 2 each morning, every morning, with a couple of days off, but always on the weekends for an afternoon. And that is really my first love, is caring for Delphine. But to fill in the other hours and to make a little change, because California is more expensive than Missouri.
It's not Kansas, that's for sure.
Right. So I appreciate working for Senior Helpers. That's the name of my company.
Senior Helpers, will give them a plug.
Yes. And
Is
so
that a state agency, nonprofit?
it's one of the many home health agencies. No, they're
Licensed, I'm sure.
They're all profit.
Really?
Yeah.
And Medicare covers that, I think.
Home health? You know,
You don't know.
really,
That's okay.
yeah.
One of our listeners or callers is going to find out.
Each family pays $30 an hour for our services.
Whoa!
But I only earn $13.50 an hour, so that
That's
tells
a huge markup.
the company's doing well. And
Yes.
but I'm not in it for the money. Fortunately, I'm in it just to be.
Well, it's ministering. It's the same kind of thing.
I want to be the hands and feet of Jesus.
Very sweet. That's
Yes,
nice.
That is my.
So how many hours a week do you work there?
15, and I go to homes, 2 homes. One's in Hayward and one's in Newark.
Now, was the interviewing process difficult? Did your other jobs help you? What do you think?
I think having been a hospice chaplain helped a lot.
I bet so.
I was very accustomed to working with the elderly, and that's who the home health agencies serve. Very rarely do we have someone young, maybe with Lou Gehrig's disease or something. But
So they're in their twilight years.
yes, absolutely.
Now,
But again, I'm plopped in the middle of a home. It's very emotional, and there are other members.
Seems very similar to the
similar
hospice.
to hospice work. Yes.
Now,
Only I don't have to prepare any kind of worship.
you don't have a sermon on Sunday either.
That, and I don't have to do funerals.
Oh, I didn't even think about that.
So I'm happy about that.
Now, one of the questions I've asked several of my other guests is whether people look at you differently because you're a part-time worker. Do you find that at all in this work, or they couldn't know or care that you work part-time?
Well,
You're just there every Thursday. They don't know what you do the rest of the
They only want part-time because, as I mentioned, there other family members surround that needy client of ours and give them support services that a full-time person just isn't needed for.
Now, we had chatted a little bit about why you enjoy part-time work now, and I think our listeners and viewers would love to hear that, because it's motivation to work part-time, I think.
Well, you can be present for your family. You have more hours of the day. If you're a parent, you can be with your children. If you're a grandparent, you can be with your grandchild. You can spend your spare hours doing self-care.
Yes,
That
I
means,
thought that was what you can take care of yourself.
right, exercise, think about diet. I can't say we always do,
But
we
positive
try.
intent.
The opportunity is there, and so I like that. And, you know, it's just a more relaxed way of life.
We have a caller. Steve, this is Dr. Business. How can I help you? Steve, are you there? Is there a technical difficulty? Steve is wanting to call Laura, but this is live TV. Well,
So
I
I
think
just want
he'll
to.
call.
Okay, if he does, we'll stop where we are now.
Hello?
But
Steve, I think you're coming through.
Hello. Hey, my name's Steve.
Hi,
And
Steve. How
I guess
can I help you?
I'm just curious as to who do you think is best qualified for part-time chaplain work? And what do you think what kind of skills someone might need to do that sort of thing?
Great. I'm glad you asked that.
well, you first do have to have the call of God
You have to be a believer of sorts.
yes, and you need to really be a caring, compassionate, listening person,
Empathy,
right?
but you've always
The
been
only thing that people want at the end of life is they want to be able to talk about their family and their faith. And so if you can talk to people about those topics, you're going to be a good chaplain.
Steve, I'll add a little bit to that. I think you need to be very, not tough-skinned, but you need to be resilient, and you need to be somewhat aware of the emotional drain that this kind of job can take. And I thought that Laura's point about taking care of yourself, rejuvenating, leaving the scene to make sure that you emotionally rebound, that's why part-time ministering or part-time hospice is very good. Now, did that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Thank you so much.
Thank you, and best of good luck in your career. I'm very pleased to hear from you. Your thought was close to...
Oh, well, I just want to say to anyone who can hear, I think the whole world should work part-time.
Okay, let's go with that. Wouldn't that be nice? Because?
Think of all the wrangling and difficulties and politicking and...
I thought your other point about office politics is a great benefit.
Yeah. There's time between the times you're working when you can let off steam, you can vent with your family about how things should be better in my job or in the world or whatever. You have time. You can journal. In my case, read the Bible. You just, you can decompress.
Well, it's very interesting. I think the American culture, high-achieving possessions, makes the concept of part-time work very difficult. Because financially, now one thing I've not been able to do is have someone that has more than one part-time job, because that is, in a way, maybe the ideal. But then you'd have a hard time getting health benefits.
Right.
Now,
You would.
someone comes to you, and you've had at least 4 different careers, and they say, what advice would you give me about either changing careers or working part-time? What would you tell them?
You need to choose a field that is flexible, such as journalism or ministry or caregiving. You can't, you couldn't have a job where people are depending on you to be there full time. I mean,
Very insightful.
I'm trying to think of some.
Well, you don't want to disappoint them.
Right. Yeah. I mean, even being a doctor, I don't know if now a nurse, yes, she can.
Well, actually, nursing is one of those professions that, if you wanted to be an intensive care nurse, for example, I'm not sure they work full time. They have part-time hours. Choose a job that gives you flexibility.
A field, a professional
field. that gives you flexibility. Also,
and don't settle for anything that isn't professional if you want to be a professional. And one of my hang-ups when I was coming out of college was, will I be able to get fulfilling, intellectually stimulating work as a part-timer? And I did, because I had professional fields that allowed me to do that.
Well, without passing any judgment on data entry, for example, I'm sure, maybe I'm not sure, there may be opportunities for people to be part-time data entry clerks. Somebody has to put the data. Now, that may not be exciting, but that gives you another option. You don't have to worry about anything. You just have to make your numbers, get it in, and leave. And that's not a bad idea either. If you could talk, have you ever done job sharing?
No.
Okay. That's another opportunity for another series here,
Yes, it
but I
is.
think it's the same kind of thing. You want to make a difference, but you have to choose a career where that would happen.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what if someone was young and eager, or a guy,
Mm-hmm.
and wanted to help with people who are physically impaired in wheelchairs, etc.?
Mm-hmm.
Would you recommend that as a part-time job as well? A physical therapist or a
Yes, occupational therapist. Yes, all those jobs, by the way, well, many of them, you can work 4 10-hour days a week, which means you get 3 days of no work. To me,
is that considered full-time or part-time?
it's a 40-hour-a-week job, 4 times 10.
Well, the reason I'm asking is when we were having another guest here, it's clear that if you don't work 30 hours, you don't get benefits.
Right.
And that is a major issue when you're young and having a family.
You need to marry a spouse who has the benefits.
Well, we should talk about that. Many of my guests have been very fortunate that way. I did have a young woman on who wanted to work part-time forever, and she's a single mom, and she's choosing a life that gives her just what you said. Flexibility, a sense of making a difference, and yet she does not have all the sort of, not the garbage, but the baggage that comes from working
Right.
full-time.
I will pray for single-payer health insurance for this country. For
Wouldn't
people,
that be nice? Now, you seem like you're not done. If you had to have another part-time job, what would that be? Have you thought about that?
I love gardening.
What?
You know,
Great.
maybe a landscape company.
That would be great. Would you consider working at a Home Depot or a Osmonds?
Being on my feet all day doesn't appeal to me.
You know, but it's
Retail-
not all day. It's
That's
part-time.
true. I do think retail work is one of the hardest fields to be. It's just hard work, but you can do it part-time. Retail work.
Okay. But for you, what do you think?
It didn't work for me.
Do you think that the workforce will become more part-time or crazier, more full-time?
Well, they're talking about AI, artificial intelligence, and
Right.
robots taking jobs that people used to be able to do, and so that is going to open up in a whole lot of unemployed people, and they're going to be looking for things that are fulfilling and fun, and volunteer work can be part-time.
Well, believe it or
It
not,
usually
Laura,
is.
our time is almost up, so I want to
Okay.
thank my crew. I want to shout out to my father-in-law, who was turning 100 on April 19th, and we're giving him a party. I want to remind you that we're back on actually April 19th, his birthday, and I'm having a I'm having a gentleman that works part-time for the National Science Foundation who will be here. So I want to thank my crew. It's the Ides of March. May it be a happy day. Thank you, Laura. You were brilliantly wonderful. I want to thank you for tuning in. Have a great week, and I'll see you in April. And that's the end of the show.